I watched the rain streak down the penthouse windows, tracing the lights of the city below. 6 years. 6 years of silence, of cold sheets, of watching my husband walk out of the door every morning and never look back. Not for me. Anyway, to the world. Liam Sterling was the untouchable king of Silicon Valley. To me, he was the ghost who shared my bed but never my life. My phone buzzed on the marble counter. A news alert. I tapped it without thinking. Tech titan Sterling spotted with heiress Evelyn Reed at Art Basel afterparty. Is wedding bells next? The photo was crisp. Liam, in a flawlessly tailored tuxedo, a faint, polite smile on his lips as he stood beside Evelyn. She was radiant, clinging to his arm, her laugh frozen in a perfect white flash. They looked plausible. The caption gushed about power couples and mergers of influence. My thumb hovered over the messaging app. We had a thread. It was 6 years long and could fit on a single screen. Mostly logistics. Dinner. No. Your dry cleaning is here. Leave it. The charity event is on the 12th. I'll be in Tokyo. I typed slowly. The rain my only witness. I saw the news. The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. A full minute later. His reply came. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. The coldness of it, the sheer, practiced indifference, was a physical slap. I threw the phone. It skittered across the floor, coming to rest against the leg of a sofa worth more than my annual salary. I didn't pick it up. I just stood there, in the center of the cavernous, sterile living room of our home, feeling smaller than I ever had in my one-bedroom apartment before all this. I was Ava Mitchell once, a graphic designer with a decent portfolio and a cat named Gouda. I met Liam Sterling at a tech incubator mixer. I was designing a logo for a friend's doomed startup. He was the keynote speaker. Head found me hiding by the potted ferns, criticizing the canapes. Head laughed. A real, startled sound. We'd talked for an hour. He was intense, brilliant, and, for a fleeting moment, human. A month of whirlwind. Secret dates later. Head proposed, not with a ring, but with a contract. My life is complicated. Ava, Head said, his eyes like storm clouds. There are people who would use you to get to me. The only way to keep you safe, to keep this, Head gestured between us, is to keep it hidden. No one can know. Not yet. I was 24, dazzled, and in love. ID, signed the prenup, the NDAs, the whole ridiculous stack of paper. I became Mrs. Sterling in a courthouse with 2 strangers as witnesses. I thought I was living a romance. I was just filing a document. The phone rang. I flinched. It wasn't my personal line, it was the other one. The sterile, black device Liam insisted I carry for emergencies. Only one person ever called it, Mark. Mark was Liam's shadow. Tall, perpetually dressed in a suit that seemed grafted to his skin, with eyes that never quite held yours. He was the conduit, the handler. He arranged the cars, the cleaners, the discreet deliveries of groceries to this museum of an apartment. He was the wall between Liam's 2 worlds, and I was forever on the wrong side of it. I walked over and picked it up. Yes, Mark. Ava. His voice was, as always, devoid of inflection. I need you to do something. It's urgent. I almost laughed. Urgent. In 6 years, my only urgent task had been to sign for a package containing confidential papers Liam had forgotten. What is it? There's a small, sealed envelope on the hall table. I need you to take it to Mr. Sterling's office at Sterling Tower. Immediately. I blinked. His office. The forbidden zone. The sanctum sanctorum. In 6 years. ID never been invited. ID never even seen a photo. Why? Can't you do it? A pause. So slight, I almost missed it. Am detained. This is time sensitive. It's a critical business matter. He's waiting for it. The code to the private elevator is 8,890. He's expecting a delivery. Just hand it to him and leave. He's expecting a delivery, not you. A delivery. A strange numbness spread through me. This was it. After all the silent dinners, the separate bedrooms, the public humiliations, I was being summoned as a courier. The final degradation. Fine, I said, my voice flat. Good. Don't open it. Don't be late. The line went dead. The envelope was where he said it would be. Cream-colored, thick, expensive paper. No marking. It was late. I pressed my fingers against it. Inside was something small, rectangular, and rigid. Not papers. The shape was too defined. My thumb brushed the corner, and I felt the telltale ridge of a small, square foil packet through the paper. A cold, sick understanding washed over me, sharp and clear as broken glass. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't a flash drive. It was a box of condoms. Mark's words echoed. Critical business matter. He's waiting for it. The image from the news article flashed before my eyes. Liam's polite smile. Evelyn Reed's triumphant grip. The laughter ID heard in the background of a call had taken here last week, bright, feminine, unfamiliar. Something inside me, something that had been bending for 6 long years, finally snapped. I didn't think. I didn't plan. A white-hot fury, purer and more powerful than any ID ever felt, ignited in my chest. It burned away the numbness, the loneliness, the years of quiet compliance. I grabbed my coat and the envelope. The drive to Sterling Tower was a blur of rain and neon. My hands were steady on the wheel, my mind terrifyingly clear. I parked illegally, ignored the sputter of the valet, and marched through the revolving doors. The lobby was all soaring glass and cold light, empty at this hour except for a bored security guard. Ma'am, you can't. I flashed the keycard Liam had given me a lifetime ago, for emergencies, and kept walking. The elevator bank, 8890, the private car whispered open. The ascent was silent and swift. The top floor, plush, silent carpet, a single, imposing door of dark wood at the end of the hall. Liam Sterling, CEO, from behind the door. I heard it, a woman's laughter, light, playful, intimate. That was the final spark. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I turned the handle, it was unlocked, and I threw the door open with all my strength. The scene imprinted itself on my mind in a single, crystalline instant. The office was vast, a panorama of the stormy city. He was standing by his monolithic desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, and she was there, Evelyn Reed, not in a photo, in the flesh, perched on the edge of his desk, one long, slender leg crossed over the other, holding a crystal tumbler of amber liquid. She was stunning, and she looked utterly at home. They both turned. Liam's face, usually a mask of perfect control, fractured. Shock, then a swift, terrifying anger flashed in his eyes. Evelyn's perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up, her smile turning curious, then faintly amused. Well, she drawled, her voice like honeyed silk. Who do we have here? A late-night delivery. Liam. Her eyes dropped to the cream-colored envelope in my death grip. I didn't look at her. My eyes were locked on my husband. I took 2 steps forward, the plush carpet muffling my footsteps. I raised my arm and threw the envelope. It sailed through the air, opale, accusing missile, and landed with a soft slap in the center of his immaculate desk, right beside a sleek computer. Your emergency delivery, I said, and my voice didn't shake. It was low, clear, and carried in the silent, tense room. I looked from his stormy face to Evelyn's intrigued one. Husband. The word dropped like a stone into a still pond. The air vanished from the room. Evelyn's amused smile froze, then melted into genuine, wide-eyed astonishment. Her gaze cut to Liam, seeking denial, explanation. Liam's expression had shut down completely. It was the blank, ruthless face he showed the world. The face of the billionaire who crushed competitors before breakfast. But I could see the pulse hammering in his jaw. Evelyn, he said, his voice dangerously calm. David, I need the room. Now. That's when I noticed the third person. A man, older, with silvering hair and a sharp, calculating face, stood by the window, holding a similar glass. Had been so still I missed him. David. He didn't look surprised. He looked interested, deeply, keenly interested. Of course. Liam, Evelyn said, recovering some of her poise. She uncoiled herself from the desk, setting her glass down with a deliberate click. Her eyes raked over me, taking in my rain-dampened coat, my old jeans, the fire in my eyes. She saw a problem, but not a threat. This is fascinating. Well, continue our discussion another time. David Carter just gave a slow, knowing nod and followed her out, closing the heavy door with a soft, definitive click. And then it was just us, husband and wife. 6 years of silence, screaming in the space between us. Liam didn't move from behind his desk. He looked at the envelope, then back at me. The anger in his eyes had cooled into something harder, more deadly. You, he said, the single word laced with a quiet venom that made my breath catch, have just broken the only rule I ever gave you. Ava, the sound of my name on his lips, after so long, was a shock. It broke through the adrenaline. My hands began to tremble. I clenched them into fists. What was this? Liam, I shot back, gesturing to the envelope. A test? Or are you and the heiress really moving so fast you need supplies delivered to the office? The sarcasm was a shield, brittle and thin. He didn't rise to it. He walked around the desk, stopping a few feet away. The proximity was unnerving. I could smell his cologne, the same one from 6 years ago, and it sent a treacherous pang through me. The contents of that envelope, he said, his voice low and precise, were requested by Mark to be delivered to me in front of David Carter. It was a message, a power play, one you were never, ever supposed to be a part of. A message, I echoed, confusion cutting through the anger. What kind of message comes in a box of condoms? The kind that says, I know your weaknesses, and am not afraid to make them public and ugly. Liam said, his eyes boring into mine. Evelyn is the daughter of Samuel Reed. Reed Holdings is voting on a merger that could make or break my biggest competitor. David Carter wants to sabotage that vote. He's been trying to get leverage on me for months, planting rumors, fabricating photos. Tonight, he was trying to imply that Evelyn and I were not involved, that her father's vote for the merger was influenced by a personal relationship. The delivery was his idea of a joke, a crude way to make the implication stick, to rattle me in front of her. The pieces shifted, but the picture was still horrifying. And Mark, your loyal assistant, is apparently on Carter's payroll, Liam said flatly, which is a problem I will deal with. But you, he took a step closer. You have just painted the biggest possible target on your back. You weren't just supposed to stay out of my office, Ava. You were supposed to stay out of my life. The life I have to live to keep Sterling afloat. To keep you safe. Safe. The laugh that burst from me was harsh, ragged. You call this safe? 6 years of being a ghost, of seeing you in the tabloids with other women, of finding out my husband might need condoms delivered to his office. What exactly was I safe from? Liam, loneliness, because you failed spectacularly. For a second, something raw flickered in his eyes. Pain, guilt. It was gone too fast to name. You have no idea what you're talking about. Then tell me, I shouted, the sound echoing in the vast room. For God's sake, Liam, am your wife. Or did you forget that little detail when you were playing power games with David Carter? I forgot nothing, he roared, finally losing his icy composure. He slammed a hand down on the desk, making the envelope jump. Every day, I remember. Every time I walk out that door, I remember. I stay away because the closer you are to me, the closer you are to the fire. People like Carter don't play fair. They go for the throat. And the quickest way to a man's throat is through his heart. I couldn't let them know I had one. The words hung between us, stark and terrible. My anger faltered, replaced by a bewildered, aching confusion. So all of it at the distance. The coldness that it was all to protect me. It was to protect this, he said, his voice dropping again, rough with an emotion I couldn't place. He gestured vaguely between us. Whatever this is, whatever's left of it, before I could respond, before I could process the hurricane of his words. His phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at it, and his face went bone white. He snatched it up, his thumb flying across the screen. His jaw tightened. What? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. What is it? He looked at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw genuine fear in Liam Sterling's eyes. It was more terrifying than any of his anger. It's Mark, he said, his voice grim. He's gone dark, and the security feed for this building's garage just went offline. He moved suddenly, grabbing his jacket and striding towards a panel in the wall I hadn't noticed. He pressed it, and a section of the bookcase swung open silently, revealing a dark corridor. David just made his move. He knows about you now. We're not safe here. We have to go. Now. He held out his hand. Not the imperious command of a CEO. It was urgent, almost desperate. I stood frozen, my world upended. The condoms, the rival, the traitor, the secret marriage, the hidden passage, the fear in his eyes. 6 years of quiet suffering had exploded into a single, surreal, terrifying hour. Outside, the rain lashed against the windows. Somewhere in the city, a man named David Carter now knew I existed, knew I was Liam Sterling's weakness. I looked at my husband's outstretched hand. Then I looked back at the envelope on the desk, a cheap, sad little package that had shattered everything. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong and real. He pulled me into the dark opening, and the bookcase swung shut behind us, sealing us into shadow. The passage behind the bookcase was narrow, cold, and lit by faint, recessed LEDs. It smelled of concrete and dust. Liam didn't let go of my hand. His grip was vice-like, pulling me forward through the darkness. I could hear the rapid, almost silent tap of his dress shoes and the scuff of my own boots. Our breathing loud in the enclosed space. Where does this go? I hissed, stumbling as the floor angled downward. Service elevator to a private garage level. He muttered, not slowing. My car is there. A different one. Untraceable. You have a secret garage and an untraceable car. The absurdity of it cut through the panic. Who are you? Liam. Jason Bourne. He didn't answer. We reached a metal door. He keyed a code into a pad, the green light flashing. The door hissed open onto a small, stark elevator. We stepped in. The doors closed, and we began to descend. In the fluorescent light of the elevator, I finally looked at him. The controlled mask was gone. His hair was disheveled from running his hand through it. His jaw was clenched, and his eyes were scanning the elevator panel as if expecting an attack. This was a Liam I'd never seen. Not the cold CEO, not the distant husband. This was a man in tactical retreat. Talk to me, I demanded, pulling my hand from his. The physical separation felt necessary. You said he knows about me. What does that mean? What is he going to do? Liam leaned against the wall, closing his eyes for a brief second. David Carter is the majority shareholder and CEO of Crite Systems. My main competitor, his father, Arthur Carter, was my father's business partner. Best friends. They founded a small software firm together 30 years ago. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto a dim, concrete garage. A single, unremarkable, black SUV sat in the center, looking both powerful and anonymous. Liam moved to the driver's side, and I got in the passenger seat. The interior was luxurious but generic. He started the engine. A low, powerful purr, and we sped up a ramp, exiting onto a wet, deserted side street. What happened? I asked, buckling my seatbelt as he navigated the rain-slicked streets with sharp, efficient turns. Arthur Carter embezzled. Millions. He set my father up to take the fall. The scandal, the lawsuits that it destroyed my father. He lost everything. His company, his reputation, his will to live. Liam's voice was flat, devoid of emotion, which made the story sound all the more terrible. He shot himself in his study when I was 16. The air left my lungs. Liam, Arthur disappeared. With the money, the case went cold. I spent the next 15 years building Sterling from nothing, with one goal: to destroy everything the Carters touched. I found Arthur 2 years ago, living under an alias in Belize. A stroke had left him a vegetable in a care home. A hollow victory. He glanced at me, his profile sharp in the dashboard lights. But he had a son, David, who inherited his father's ambition, his cruelty, and his grudge against the Sterling name. Sterling Tech is about to launch Ethelred. It's not just another product, Ava. It's a new protocol that will make Krite's entire infrastructure obsolete. David's company will be worth pennies in a year. He's desperate, and desperate men stop at nothing. The pieces were clicking into a monstrous picture. So Evelyn read that the merger vote is a distraction, a side play. David's real goal is me. He wants to force me to sell Sterling to him at a fraction of its value before Ethelred launches. He's tried corporate espionage, hacking, poaching my engineers. Nothing's worked. Now he's playing dirtier, personal. The rumors with Evelyn, the planted photos they were to create instability, to spook my board. But you. He took a sharp turn onto a highway, the city lights receding behind us. You are the ultimate leverage, a secret wife, a vulnerability he never knew existed. And thanks to your dramatic entrance tonight, he knows. The guilt was immediate and corrosive. I didn't know. I thought. I know what you thought, he said. And for the first time, there was a flicker of something that wasn't anger or fear. It looked like exhaustion. I made you think it. I built the wall so high. I shouldn't be surprised you thought I was on the other side with someone else. The raw honesty of it stunned me into silence. We drove for miles, leaving the city behind, entering a wooded area where the only light came from our headlights cutting through the pouring rain. Where are we going? A place, he said simply. 20 minutes later, he turned off the main road onto an unmarked gravel drive that wound through dense trees. It ended in front of a modern, low-slung house of glass and steel, nearly invisible in the dark. It looked like a billionaire's minimalist retreat. He parked inside a closed garage. The door rumbled shut behind us, plunging us into silence. The only sound was the rain drumming on the roof. We got out. The air in the garage was cool and still. Liam led me through a door into the house. It was the opposite of our penthouse. Here, the furnishings were warm, lived in. A large fireplace dominated the living room. Books lined the walls. A soft rug covered the floor. It felt out real. What is this place? I whispered. Mine, he said, tossing his keys on a side table. No one knows about it. Not Mark. Not the board. No one. He walked to a panel on the wall, tapping a sequence. Lights came on, soft and warm. A security system beeped, showing a grid of camera feeds from around the property. We should be safe here. For now. He shrugged off his suit jacket, then his tie, looking suddenly younger, more approachable in his rolled-up shirt sleeves. The vulnerability was unnerving. I stood in the middle of the room, feeling like an intruder. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me shivering. The image of the condom envelope on his desk flashed again. The delivery, Mark called me. He said it was a critical business matter. He sounded normal. Liam poured 2 fingers of whiskey from a decanter and drank it neat. He's been with me for 8 years. I trusted him with my life. More importantly, I trusted him with the fact that I had a life to protect. He looked at the liquid in his glass. David got to him. Money. Threats. Probably both. The delivery was a two-part move. First, to humiliate me in front of Evelyn and David. Second, to flush you out, to confirm the rumors he must have only suspected. Mark knew sending you would guarantee a reaction. He was counting on it. The manipulation was so deep, so cold. I wrapped my arms around myself. So what now? We hide here forever. No. He set the glass down with a definitive click. Now, we fight back. But to do that, I need to know what you want. Ava. He walked to a sleek desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a slim folder. He placed it on the coffee table between us. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. The font, the weight of the paper, it was the same as all the other legal documents that had defined my life for 6 years. It's a post-nuptial agreement, he said, his voice devoid of inflection. And attached to it, filed but not yet executed, is a petition for divorce. The post-nup grants you a settlement, a generous one, enough that you'll never have to work again. The house in Napa, the apartment in Paris, a significant portion of liquid assets. My heart was a block of ice in my chest. You had this ready. I've had it ready for 3 years, he admitted, not meeting my eyes. Updated it every year, in case this day ever came, in case you ever decided this. He gestured between us, at the space filled with 6 years of silence. That wasn't enough. Or in case my world ever touched yours, and you needed a clean, safe way out, the finality of it, the clinical, pre-planned escape route. It was the ultimate proof of how Head seen our marriage, as a liability to be managed. A tear, hot and angry, escaped and traced a path down my cheek. I didn't wipe it away. And the divorce. You were just going to let me go, sign the papers and vanish. If that's what kept you safe. Yes. He finally looked at me, and his gaze was stark, stripped bare. I told you, Ava, you are my only weakness, the only thing David Carter, or anyone like him, could use to break me. If the choice is between you being free and you being mine while in the crosshairs, there is no choice. The words should have been romantic, a declaration. Instead, they felt like a sentence. He had spent our entire marriage building a prison to keep me safe, and now he was offering me the key, along with a check for my pain and suffering. I walked to the coffee table. I picked up the folder. It was heavy. I didn't open it. I looked at my husband, this brilliant, tortured, infuriating man who had loved me so fiercely had made me invisible. You spent 6 years pushing me away to protect me, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. You made all the decisions. You built the walls. You set the rules. I held up the folder. And now, when the walls come down, you're offering me a check and a door. He flinched, just barely. It's not a check. It's security. Freedom. It's a payoff. Liam. The anger returned. Clean and sharp. You don't get to unilaterally decide what's best for me anymore. You don't get to marry me in secret, hide me away, and then buy me off when it gets hard. What do you want from me? He roared, his composure finally shattering. He strode around the table, stopping inches from me. The heat of him, the intensity, was overwhelming. You want me to say I'm sorry. I am. Every damn day. You want me to say it killed me to walk out that door every morning. It did. You want me to tell you I stayed awake nights thinking of you in that empty penthouse, wondering if you hated me. I did. But I did it because the alternative was watching you get hurt. Or worse. You think David Carter plays by rules. He had a whistleblower from my RD department killed last year. Made it look like a hiking accident. I have the evidence, but I can't prove it. That's the man who now knows your name. Ava, what do you want me to do? Ask you to stand beside me in the line of fire. Yes, I shouted, shoving the folder against his chest. He didn't move. That's what I vowed to do, for better or for worse. Remember, not for better, and then you get to unilaterally decide what worse is too scary for me. I'm not a porcelain doll. Liam, I'm your wife. The word hung between us again, charged now with all the pain and longing of 6 years. His eyes searched my face, wild, conflicted. You have no idea what you're asking. Then show me, I challenged, my breath coming fast. Stop protecting me from the truth. Let me in. For once, just let me in. For a long moment, he just stared at me. The fight seemed to drain out of him, leaving behind a profound weariness. He took the folder from my hands, not to put it away. He looked at it, at the symbol of his failed attempt at control, at safety. Then, slowly, deliberately, he tore it in half. The sound of ripping paper was shockingly loud in the quiet room. He didn't stop. He tore the halves into quarters, then eighths, until a small snowstorm of legal confetti fluttered to the floor at our feet. He dropped the last shred, his eyes never leaving mine. All right. The single word held the weight of a vow. All right, I echoed, my heart hammering. You want in, he said, his voice low and gravelly. You're in, but we do this my way. You listen, you follow my lead. And the first sign of real danger, you run. No arguments. Do you understand? I nodded, unable to speak. A ghost of his old, wry smile touched his lips. I'll take that as a yes. He ran a hand through his hair. First, we need to know what David's next move is. He's impulsive. He'll act fast. He'll try to use you to pressure me publicly. A leak to the press. Photos. Something. So we get ahead of him. I said, the idea forming even as I said it. The numbness was gone, replaced by a sharp, clear focus I hadn't felt in years. We control the narrative. Liam's eyes narrowed. What are you thinking? You said he wants to create instability, to make you look weak, distracted. What's the opposite of that? I took a step closer. The plan crystallizing. Strength. Unity. You can't hide me anymore, Liam. So don't. Use me. Absolutely not. The refusal was instantaneous. Automatic. Hear me out. I pressed. You have that charity gala for the Children's Tech Fund next week. It's the biggest social event of the season. The press will be there. Everyone will be there. David, Evelyn, your entire board. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by fierce resistance. No, Ava, it's too dangerous. It's putting you on a stage with a target on your back. I already have the target, I argued. David knows I exist. Hiding me here just makes me a secret he can threaten you with. But if I'm not a secret, if I'm right there, on your arm, presented as your partner, IT changes the game. It shows you're not afraid. It shows you have nothing to hide. It takes his leverage and turns it into your strength. He was silent, pacing away from me, his mind clearly racing through the scenarios. It's a gamble, he said finally, a huge one. If it backfires, it won't, I said, with more confidence than I felt. We sell it. We sell us. The reclusive billionaire and his brilliant, private wife. A love story for the ages. It's the one thing David can attack without looking like a monster. He was trying to paint you as a womanizer. This makes you a devoted husband. He turned to look at me, a strange expression on his face. A love story for the ages, he repeated softly, almost to himself. He studied me, as if seeing me for the first time, not as a liability to be managed, but as an ally, a partner. You'd have to sell it, Ava, every second, in front of the cameras. The sharks, it's not a world of kindness. They'll rip into you, your past, our secret, why we hid. Let them, I said, lifting my chin. I spent 6 years being nobody. I think I can handle one night of being somebody. You're somebody. The air between us crackled. The storm outside. The danger. The shredded papers on the floor. It all faded away. It was just him and me. Finally on the same side of the wall had built. He crossed the room in 2 long strides. He didn't kiss me. He just took my face in his hands, his thumbs brushing my cheeks. His gaze, so intense it felt like a physical touch. "You're sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything," I whispered, and it was the truth. He leaned his forehead against mine, a gesture so intimate, so tender, it stole my breath. "Then well-needed rest," he murmured, a hint of his old, commanding self returning. And a story, a sudden, sharp ping from his pocket made us both jump apart. He pulled out a different phone, a cheap-looking burner. His face hardened as he read the screen. "What is it?" "Perimeter alert," he said, his voice all business again. He strode to the security panel. The bank of screens showed various night vision views of the woods surrounding the house. On one, near the tree line, a shadow moved, then another. My blood ran cold. They found us. How? Liam's fingers flew over the panel, zooming in. The grainy image resolved into a figure, dressed in dark clothing, moving with purpose. Then the figure looked up, directly at the camera. Even in the poor light, I recognized the cold, efficient features. It was Mark. He must have had a tracker on my car from the city. Or on me. Damn it. Liam's voice was tight. "We have to go. Now." "Go where?" Panic. Fresh and cold. Clawed at my throat. Somewhere he won't expect. Liam grabbed my hand again, pulling me towards a back hall. "The house has another exit. To the lake." We ran through the dark house, out a back door, and onto a wooden deck. Beyond it, the woods fell away to a black expanse of water, choppy from the rain. A small, covered boathouse stood at the end of a dock. "There's a boat?" I asked, my heart in my throat. "Jet skis," Liam said grimly, ushering me down the slippery dock. Faster, harder to track. We reached the boathouse. He punched a code, and a door slid open. Inside, two sleek, black jet skis floated in the dark water. The rain was coming down harder now, cold and stinging. "Can you drive one of these?" Liam shouted over the drumming on the roof. I nodded, a memory surfacing from a lifetime ago. My uncle had one, a long time ago. "Good. Follow me. Stay close. We're going across the lake. There's a road on the other side. I have a car staged there." He helped me onto one of the machines. It was cold and wet. He showed me the starter, the throttle. His hands were steady, his instructions clipped. "Don't stop for anything. If we get separated, head due east. You'll see lights." From the house, we heard a distant crash, a door being forced. "Go," Liam hissed, straddling his own jet ski. The engines whined to life. A high-pitched scream in the enclosed space. Liam hit a button, and the entire front of the boathouse began to roll up, revealing the storm-lashed lake. Rain and wind immediately lashed at us. Liam gunned his engine and shot out into the darkness. I took a deep, shuddering breath, gripped the handles, and followed. The cold was instant and shocking. The jet ski bucked beneath me as I hit the open water. I could barely see Liam's dark shape ahead, a speck against the black water and sheets of rain. I twisted the throttle, lurching forward, struggling to control the machine. The lake felt vast, endless. A searchlight speared the darkness from the shore behind us, sweeping across the water. It missed me by yards. They were at the boathouse. I didn't look back. I focused on Liam's disappearing silhouette, the roar of the engine, the bite of the rain. My hands were frozen to the handles, my teeth chattering. This was madness. This was his life. Danger, chases, enemies in the dark. And I was in it now, truly in it. The far shore emerged from the gloom, a darker line against the dark sky. I saw Liam's jet ski slow, then veer towards a small, rocky beach. I followed, my muscles screaming with tension. I ran my craft up next to his, the hull scraping on stones. He was already off, wading through the shallow water to grab my arm, pulling me onto shore. "This way." We stumbled up a short, wooded bank, a narrow dirt road, little more than a trail. appeared. Parked under the dripping trees was an old, mud-splattered pickup truck. It looked like it belonged to a hunter or a groundskeeper. Liam opened the passenger door. "Get in." I collapsed into the seat, soaked and shivering violently. He got in the driver's side, pulled a key from under the visor, and the engine coughed to life. He turned the heat on full blast. We sat for a moment in the rattling cab, the only sound the roar of the heater and our ragged breathing. The rain hammered on the roof. He looked at me, water streaming down his face. "All right, imana gedanod." My jaw clenched too tight to speak. A grim smile touched his lips. "Welcome to the fight, Mrs. Sterling." He put the truck in gear, and we lurched off down the dark, muddy road, leaving the lake, the safe house, and the men hunting us behind in the storm. The old truck smelled of damp earth, gasoline, and pine. I huddled in the passenger seat, the blast from the heaters slowly thawing the ice in my bones. My clothes were plastered to my skin, my hair a tangled mess. Liam drove with a focused intensity, his eyes constantly scanning the rearview mirror and the dark, winding road ahead. The headlights cut a feeble path through the relentless rain. We didn't speak. "Where are we going?" I finally asked, my voice a dry croak. "Somewhere with no digital footprint." He said, not taking his eyes off the road. "Cash only, off the grid. You have a lot of these places, don't you?" I said, a hysterical laugh bubbling in my chest. I choked it back. "I have contingencies," he replied, his tone flat. "When you're trying to take down a man like Arthur Carter and his progeny, you learn to have backups for your backups." We drove for another hour, leaving the woods for a stretch of bleak, industrial highway before turning off onto a series of increasingly decrepit county roads. We finally pulled into the gravel lot of a place called the Dewdrop Inn. The sign was missing half its letters, flickering weakly. It was a single-story, L-shaped motel that looked like it had been left behind by a different century. Liam killed the engine. "Wait here." He pulled the collar of his ruined dress shirt up and got out, disappearing into the small, brightly lit office. I watched through the rain-streaked window as he spoke to a sleepy-looking clerk, sliding cash across the counter. No ID, no credit card. He returned a minute later with a single, tarnished key on a red plastic fob. "Room 12, around back." We parked in front of the room. The door opened with a groan, revealing a space that was clean in the way only profound indifference can make a place clean. 2 double beds with thin floral spreads, a scarred wooden desk, a TV that might have been from the 90s, and the faint scent of bleach and mildew. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Liam locked the door behind us, threw the deadbolt, and immediately began a methodical check of the room. He pulled the flimsy curtains tightly shut, checked the window locks, peered into the bathroom, and even looked under the beds. Satisfied, he leaned against the desk, the weight of the night finally seeming to settle on his shoulders. "We're clear. For now." I just stood there, dripping onto the brown carpet. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a deep, shivering cold and a torrent of questions. "He found us. Mark. He found the safe house." "How?" Liam ran a hand over his face. "My fault. I was complacent. The safe house was secure. But the car I took from the city, I used it a few weeks ago for a meeting with a Japanese investor who was paranoid about digital tracking. Mark must have put a physical tracker on it then, anticipating I might use it for something sensitive. He's been planning this for a while." He looked at me, his expression grim. "He knows all my protocols, Ava, all my patterns. He's the one who helped me establish them. It makes him dangerous." The reality of the betrayal seemed to physically pain him. Mark wasn't just an employee, had been a confidant, the gatekeeper, the one person besides me who knew about the secret marriage. The irony was a bitter pill. "So what's the plan?" I asked, my teeth starting to chatter. "We can't stay here forever. The plan is the gala," he said, pushing off the desk. "But we need to be smarter. David will expect me to go to ground, to hide you. He won't expect me to parade you in front of the entire world in 4 days. It's our best move, our only move. He walked to the closet and pulled out a few thin, scratchy-looking towels. He tossed one to me. Get dry. You'll catch pneumonia. The mundane concern, in the midst of the chaos, was almost funny. I took the towel and began rubbing my hair. Liam shrugged out of his soaked suit jacket and dress shirt, hanging them over the back of a chair. In his white undershirt, he looked younger, more vulnerable. The hard lines of his CEO persona softened. I saw the tense set of his shoulders, the weariness around his eyes. Liam, I said, my voice muffled by the towel. The gala plan. It's a good one, but it's a performance, and I'm not an actress. What's our story? How did the reclusive Liam Sterling meet and marry a graphic designer without anyone knowing for 6 years? The press will dissect it. David will be looking for holes. He turned to face me, leaning against the wall. We tell a version of the truth. We met at a mixer. It was a whirlwind. We eloped. We kept it quiet to protect the relationship from the media circus. I've always been private. It's believable. And the last 6 years, the separate lives, the fact that no one has ever seen us together, that I don't live in your public residences. You value your privacy and your career, he said, his mind clearly working through the narrative. You refused to be a trophy wife. You kept your maiden name for professional reasons. We maintained separate homes to preserve our independence. It's unconventional, but in the age of power couples and prenups, it's not unheard of. And the other women, the rumors, Evelyn Reed, a shadow crossed his face. Business, necessary appearances, and you, understanding the pressures of my world, trusted me. He said it like it was simple, like trust was a commodity we had in abundance. I let the towel fall around my shoulders. You're asking me to sell a fairy tale, Liam, one where the princess is perfectly happy living alone in a tower while the prince gallivants around with other women for business. People might buy the secret marriage. They won't buy that I was happy with it. Then don't sell happiness, he said quietly, his eyes locking on mine. Sell devotion. Sell a love so powerful we were willing to defy convention, to live in the shadows, just to protect it. Sell the story of two people who would do anything for each other. He paused. It's not even a lie, Ava. Not entirely. The room was silent except for the drumming rain on the roof. The space between us hummed with all the unspoken things. The 6 years of silence. The fear. The lingering attraction that had never quite died. Just been buried under layers of pain and protocol. Why did you stay? The question was out before I could stop it. Whispered into the motel room gloom. All those years. You could have had the divorce any time. You had the papers ready. Why keep me locked away in that gilded cage if it was such a burden? He didn't answer for a long time. He looked at the water-stained ceiling, then at the floor, anywhere but at me. When he finally spoke, his voice was so low I had to strain to hear it. Because from the moment I met you, I had two choices. Let you in completely and watch you become a target for every vulture and shark in my world. Or build a wall so high and so thick that even I couldn't get over it to hurt you. He finally met my gaze, and the raw honesty there stole my breath. Ishozawal. It was the worst decision of my life, and the only one I could live with. Every time I saw a headline, every time I had to stand next to someone like Evelyn Reed, I told myself it was the price of keeping you safe, of keeping some part of you, pure, untouched by the ugliness I deal with every day. You didn't keep me safe, I said, a tear escaping and tracing a hot path down my cold cheek. You made me lonely. You made me doubt everything. You made me think I wasn't enough. He crossed the room in 2 strides. He didn't touch me, but he stood so close I could feel the heat radiating from him. You were always enough, Ava. You were everything. That was the problem. You were the only thing that mattered. And that made you the ultimate weapon against me. So I hid you. even from myself. Sometimes his hand came up, as if to brush the tear away, but he stopped, clenching it into a fist at his side. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. It wasn't a grand declaration. It was an apology, stark and simple, and for the first time in 6 years, I believed him. I saw not the formidable CEO, nor the distant husband, but a man who had been fighting a war on 2 fronts for so long had forgotten how to lay down his arms, even for the person he was fighting for. I reached out and took his clenched fist. Slowly, I uncurled his fingers, lacing mine with his. His hand was warm, solid, real. He stared at our joined hands as if had never seen them before. No more walls, I said, my voice firm. No more decisions made for me. From now on, we're a team, or we're nothing. He looked from our hands to my face. His stormy eyes searched mine, looking for doubt, for hesitation. He found only resolve. A slow, weary, but genuine smile touched his lips, the first real 1ID scene in years. A team, he agreed, his thumb stroking the back of my hand. The moment stretched, fragile and charged. The rain, the shabby motel room, the danger outside, it all faded away. It was just us, in a bubble of truce, of terrible, hopeful possibility. His phone, the burner, buzzed on the desk, shattering the silence. He let go of my hand reluctantly to pick it up. His brow furrowed as he read the message. What is it? An alert from a back-channel source, he said, his voice all business again. The moment was over, but the connection, the shift, remained. David is moving faster than I anticipated. He's called an emergency board meeting for Sterling Tech. For tomorrow. My blood ran cold. Tomorrow. Why? He doesn't have enough shares to force anything. He doesn't need to force a vote. He just needs to create chaos. If he can sow enough doubt about my leadership, about my personal stability, the institutional investors could get spooked. Stock prices could tumble right before the Ethelred launch. It's a classic destabilization play. He started pacing the small room. He's using you, Ava, us. The secret wife scandal is the perfect tabloid fuel. He'll leak it before the meeting. Try to paint me as reckless, deceitful, a liability. So we leak it first. I said, the idea solidifying. On our terms. Tonight. He stopped pacing. Tonight. How? We have no press contacts we can trust. Anything we put out will look like damage control. A slow smile spread across my face. It felt foreign. After so long. We don't use the press. We use social media. We don't give them a scandal. We give them a love story. He looked skeptical. Ava, think about it. I pressed, excitement lending energy to my voice. A grainy, intimate, leaked photo. From us. To the world. Not a polished press release. Something raw. Real. It goes viral in minutes. By the time David's planted story hits, ITLL look like a cheap imitation. He'll be reacting to our narrative. Liam's eyes lit with a calculating gleam. He was seeing it now. The strategy would need a photo, one that looks candid, stolen, not staged. I looked around the dismal motel room. The flickering fluorescent light, the faded curtains, the two of us looking like drowned rats. What's more candid than this? I gestured around us. The billionaire and his secret wife, on the run, finding solace in each other's arms in a roadside motel. It's practically a movie poster. A reluctant grin tugged at his lips. It's insane. It's brilliant, I countered, and it has the added benefit of being true. Well, mostly. He considered for a long moment, then nodded once, sharply. All right, how do we do it? I picked up the burner phone. Its camera was terrible. Low resolution. Perfect. We take the picture. Then we need a channel. A gossip blog. An influencer. Someone with high reach who's not in David's pocket. I might know someone, Liam said slowly. An old acquaintance. She runs a culture blog. Hates corporate sharks. and she owes me a favor. Can you trust her? As much as I can trust anyone. Which, at the moment, isn't saying much. He took the phone from me. We need to sell it. Look, tired, but together. I moved to stand beside him in front of the blank motel room wall. He put an arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. The contact was electric, even through our damp clothes. I leaned into him, letting my head rest against his shoulder, closing my eyes for a second. I wasn't acting. The exhaustion, the fear, the fragile new understanding, it was all real. He held the phone at arm's length, angling it. The flash was harsh in the dim room. He took 3 quick shots. We looked at them on the tiny screen. We were a mess. Hair wild, clothes rumpled, faces pale with stress. But there was an intimacy in the way I was curled into him, in the way his arm held me tightly. It didn't look staged. It looked stolen. It looked real. It's good, I whispered. He selected the best one. His jaw set. Once I send this, there's no going back. The world will know. David will know we're not hiding. The game changes completely. I looked up at him. The game changed the moment I walked into your office. Let's play to win. He held my gaze for a heartbeat longer. Then his thumb hovered over the screen. With a soft click, the photo was attached to a pre-written message. He typed a phone number, hit send, and immediately removed the SIM card, snapping it in half. It's done. We stood there in the sudden silence, the weight of what we'd just done settling over us. There was no fanfare, no sudden revelation, just a digital signal winging its way into the world, carrying our secret into the light. What now? I asked. Now, Liam said, his voice thick with exhaustion. We wait, and we get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a very long day. He gestured to the 2 beds. The unspoken question hung in the air. The old distance, the separate rooms, the cold sheets, they were a habit 6 years in the making. But the wall was gone, torn down by confession, by a shared enemy, by a single, searing moment of connection. I didn't move towards the other bed. I just looked at him, standing in the middle of the shabby room, looking more lost than I'd ever seen him. He saw my hesitation. Ava, he began, but I didn't let him finish. I walked to the bed nearest the window and sat down on the edge, pulling back the thin floral spread. I looked at him over my shoulder. We're a team, right? He stared at me, a war of emotions in his eyes. Then, wordlessly, he crossed the room. He didn't get into the other bed. He sat down on the edge of mine, his back to me, and pulled off his shoes. He lay down on top of the covers, still in his damp trousers and undershirt, staring at the ceiling. I turned off the lamp on the nightstand, plunging the room into darkness, broken only by the sliver of neon light leaking around the edges of the curtain. I lay down beside him, on top of the covers as well, leaving a careful foot of space between us. The rain continued its steady patter on the roof. We lay in silence for a long time, listening to the storm and the hum of the old heater. The distance between us felt vast and infinitesimal. Liam, I whispered into the dark. Thank you for tearing up the papers. I heard him shift. In the faint light, I could see his profile as he turned his head toward me. Don't thank me yet, he murmured. The hard part starts tomorrow. But he didn't turn away. And when, hours later, I finally drifted into a fitful sleep, I was aware of the solid, warm presence of him beside me, a bulwark against the terrifying, exhilarating unknown that tomorrow would bring. I woke to the smell of cheap coffee and the sound of a shower running. Gray morning light filtered through the thin curtains. For a disorienting second, I didn't know where I was. The floral bedspread, the textured ceiling, the faint scent of mildew, then it all crashed back. The office, the condoms, the jet ski, the motel. Liam. I sat up. My muscles ached from the cold and the tension. Liam's bed was empty, the covers rumpled. The door to the small bathroom was ajar, steam curling out. The domestic normality of it was surreal. My phone, my real phone, a sleek, silenced brick, lay on the nightstand. ID turned it off last night. With a deep breath, I powered it on. It buzzed and chirped to life. Notifications flooding the screen. Dozens of missed calls. Hundreds of texts. Emails. Social media alerts. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened the first news alert. Sterling's secret. Tech titan's hidden wife revealed in shock motel photo. The article was from a major celebrity gossip site. There, in grainy, glorious color, was our photo. We looked exhausted, haunted, but undeniably together. My head on his shoulder, his arm around me. The awful motel room a blur in the background. The caption was breathless. Has reclusive billionaire Liam Sterling been hiding a wife all these years? This exclusive, leaked photo shows Sterling and a mysterious woman in a cozy, if downmarket, embrace. Sources confirming they are legally married. The tech world is reeling. Who is Ava Mitchell? I scrolled. It was everywhere. Every tabloid, every business blog. Even the mainstream financial news was running with the story. The narrative was exactly what we'd hoped for. A whirlwind secret romance. A marriage hidden from the paparazzi. A love story for the ages. The tone was more intrigued than scandalized. David's planned leak had been completely preempted. The shower stopped. A minute later, Liam emerged, a thin motel towel slung around his hips, another in his hands as he rubbed at his damp hair. He was all hard planes and taut muscle, a map of old scars and recent tension. I quickly averted my eyes, my face heating. It's live, I said, holding up my phone, my voice shaky with a mix of adrenaline and relief. He came over, leaning to look at the screen. He smelled of generic soap and clean. Damp skin. Good, he said, a note of satisfaction in his voice. He straightened. The narrative is holding. Look, the comments are mostly positive. How romantic. Good for them. Power couple. He glanced at me. You're a trending topic. Hashtag who is Ava Mitchell. The thought made me nauseous. My inbox is full. My studio's website has crashed. My mom called. 12 times. Liam's expression softened. Just for a moment. You should call her back. Tell her you're safe. Don't give details. What do I even say? Hi, Mom. Sorry, I didn't tell you I've been married to a billionaire for 6 years. We're currently on the run from a corporate raider. Wish you were here. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Maybe leave out the last part. He walked to a duffel bag I hadn't noticed. He must have retrieved it from the truck and pulled out fresh clothes. Dark jeans, a simple black t-shirt, a hoodie. We need to move. David will be scrambling, but he'll regroup. He'll try to counter our narrative. How? I asked, the momentary victory fading. By attacking you, Liam said grimly, pulling the t-shirt over his head. He'll dig. He'll look for anything. Old boyfriends. Financial trouble. A parking ticket to paint you as a gold digger. An opportunist. Unstable. Anything to undermine the love story and make me look like a fool. The coffee ID smelled was in a cheap pot on the desk. Liam poured 2 styrofoam cups and handed one to me. It was bitter and weak, but the heat was welcome. So what's our next move? We lean in, he said, taking a sip and wincing. We have exactly 3 days until the gala. We use them. We give the people a show. Controlled exposure. We need to own the story before David can twist it. What does leaning in look like? I asked, wary. First, we get you some clothes that don't look like you swam here, he said, a hint of his old, dry humor returning. Then, we make our first public appearance. Small, controlled, but undeniable. An hour later, after a breakfast of gas station granola bars, we were in the truck, heading back towards the city. Liam drove with a ball cap pulled low, sunglasses on. I kept my head down. We stopped at an anonymous strip mall outside the city limits. Liam went into a nondescript boutique alone and emerged 20 minutes later with several shopping bags. Basic, he said, handing them to me in the passenger seat. But it should fit. We're not going for fashion statements today. I changed in the truck's cramped back seat, dark jeans, a soft cashmere sweater, leather ankle boots. Simple, expensive, and utterly unlike my usual graphic tees and sneakers. It felt like a costume. Our destination was a small, exclusive art gallery in a revitalized downtown neighborhood. It was a Tuesday morning. The place would be nearly empty. As Liam parallel parked the beat-up truck between a Tesla and a Mercedes SUV, my palms began to sweat. The owner, Greta, is a friend, Liam said, cutting the engine. She's discreet. She's also connected to every society columnist in the city. If we're seen here, ITLLB in the papers by this afternoon. We look. We buy something small. We leave. We're just a wealthy couple browsing art. Normal. Unhurried. In love. He said the last word like it was a tactical objective. And if there are photographers, there will be. I tipped off a friendly one on the way here. They'll be discreet. At a distance. Candid. My heart was a frantic bird in my chest. Liam, I don't know if I can do this. He reached over, his hand covering mine on my knee. His touch was steady, warm. You can. Just follow my lead. And remember, you're not acting. You're with your husband. Finally, I took a deep, shuddering breath and nodded. We got out of the truck. The late morning sun was bright. Liam came around to my side, took my hand, and laced his fingers through mine. The gesture was so simple, so natural, yet it sent a jolt through me. It was the first time Head held my hand in public, in any place that wasn't a dark garage or motel room. We walked to the gallery entrance. He held the door for me. The gallery was cool, quiet, all white walls and polished concrete floors. A few abstract sculptures dotted the space. An elegant older woman with a severe silver bob looked up from a desk. Her eyes widened in recognition, then sharpened with keen interest. Liam, she said, her voice a cultured murmur. What a delightful surprise. Her gaze swept over me, taking in every detail. And you must be Ava. The mystery is solved. Welcome. Greta, Liam said, his voice easy, a slight smile on his face. It was a performance, but a convincing one. Ava has an eye for the emerging West Coast expressionists. I told her your collection was unparalleled. I managed a smile. It's a beautiful space. For the next 30 minutes, we browsed. Liam kept my hand in his thumb making slow, absent circles on my skin. Head point out a piece. Lean in to murmur something about the artist's technique. His breath warm against my ear. To anyone watching, we were the picture of connubial bliss. I found myself relaxing into the role, into the warmth of his hand, the low timbre of his voice. It was frighteningly easy to pretend. We settled on a small, striking watercolor. Liam paid in cash from a thick roll of bills, no paper trail. As Greta wrapped it, she smiled. It's so lovely to finally meet you. My dear, Liam has been so secretive, but I understand. To protect something precious. Her eyes held a genuine warmth. The story was selling. We stepped back out onto the street. The sun felt brighter, the air sharper. We'd done it. We'd taken the first, terrifying step out of the shadows. See, Liam murmured, leaning close as he helped me into the truck. Painless. It wasn't painless. It was terrifying, but it was also, in a strange way, exhilarating. As Liam started the engine, my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. I showed it to Liam. His jaw tightened. Answer it. On speaker. I swiped to answer. Hello, Ava Mitchell. A smooth, male voice. Unfamiliar. Who is this? My name is David Carter. I believe you're acquainted with my work. The air in the truck seemed to freeze. Liam's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I caught his eye. He gave a sharp, almost imperceptible nod. Keep him talking. What do you want, Mr. Carter? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. I want to offer you a way out of the rather messy situation you found yourself in, he said, his tone congenial, as if discussing the weather. Your husband is a fascinating man, brilliant, driven, but also, as I'm sure you're learning, profoundly reckless. He drags everyone around him into the vortex of his personal wars. I don't know what you're talking about, don't you? He chuckled, a dry, unpleasant sound. The motel photo was a clever move. Truly, but it's a facade, Ava, and facades crack. I have information about Liam, about the real reason he married you. Information that would shatter that pretty little love story you're trying to sell. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. I'm not interested. You should be. He pressed, his voice dropping to a confidential murmur. Ask him about the night of June 12th, 6 years ago, the night before your charming elopement. Ask him what he was really doing when he was supposedly falling in love with you. My eyes snapped to Liam. His face had gone ashen. He shook his head once, a sharp, desperate movement. I have nothing to say to you, I said, my throat tight. Think about it. David said, smoothly. My offer is simple. You walk away now, with dignity. I'll ensure you receive a very generous severance package, far more than whatever pittance Liam's post-nup offered. You can disappear, start over, no messy headlines, no dragging your name and the name of your poor mother through the mud. Or you can stay on the sinking ship. When it goes down, and it will, everyone on board drowns. Your choice. The line went dead. I lowered the phone, my hand trembling. The gallery, the performance, the fleeting sense of control, it all evaporated. The truck was filled with a thick, suffocating silence. June 12th, I said, my voice hollow. What happened on June 12th, Liam? He didn't answer. He stared straight ahead, his profile a mask of stone. The light had changed. The cars behind us honked. He didn't move. Liam, I said, sharper. He said to ask you. He said it was the night before we got married. What is he talking about? Liam finally put the truck in gear and pulled forward, his movements stiff. He's lying. It's what he does. He plants doubts. He twists truths. Then tell me the truth. The words burst out of me, fear and frustration boiling over. What could possibly be so bad that David Carter thinks it can make me walk away? What did you do? He pulled the truck into a deserted alley between two warehouses and threw it into park. He gripped the steering wheel so hard I thought it might break. The conflict on his face was agonizing to watch. I made a mistake, Ava, he said, the words ripped from somewhere deep and pained. A terrible, unforgivable mistake. What mistake? He turned to look at me then, and the raw anguish in his eyes stole my breath. The man who ruined my father, Arthur Carter. I told you I found him 2 years ago. That wasn't the whole truth. He took a shuddering breath. I found him 6 years ago, the week before I met you. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. What? I tracked him to Belize. He was already sick, but he was alive. He was living in a villa, living off the money he stole, laughing about it. Liam's voice was a low, venomous whisper. I confronted him. I wanted him to admit it, to beg for forgiveness. He just laughed, told me my father was a weak fool, that I was just like him. A terrible cold was seeping into my bones. What did you do? Liam, I lost it, he said, his eyes distant, seeing a memory I couldn't fathom. We fought. He fell. He hit his head on the edge of a stone table. He finally looked at me, his gaze begging for an understanding I couldn't yet give. It was an accident, Ava. I never meant. But he was dead before he hit the ground. The air vanished from the truck. I couldn't breathe. You killed him. It was manslaughter, he said, the word explosive. But it didn't matter. I was a foreigner, a rich American in his house. The police. It would have been a nightmare. A scandal that would have buried Sterling Tech before it even launched. So I ran. I covered it up. I paid off the house staff. I made it look like Head had a stroke, which wasn't hard given his condition. I left. My mind was reeling, trying to process the confession. The man I demarried, the controlled, meticulous CEO, was confessing to covering up a death. And the next night, June 12th, I flew back to San Francisco. I was not myself. I was drowning in guilt, in rage, in fear. I went to that mixer because I had to be seen, to establish an alibi for my time out of the country. I was going through the motions. His eyes found mine, and the memory there was stark, clear. And then I saw you, by the potted ferns, looking utterly bored and beautiful. And for 1 hour, you made me forget you were a light in a very, very dark place. Ava, marrying you. It was impulsive. It was crazy, but it felt like the only pure, good thing I'd done in years. A secret to balance the other, terrible one. The pieces slammed together with brutal, devastating force. The whirlwind romance. The immediate, absolute secrecy. The walls. It wasn't just to protect me from his enemies. It was to protect me from him, from the truth of what had done. You married me as a cover. I whispered, the realization like a knife to the heart. A beautiful, distracting secret to hide an ugly one. No, the denial was fierce, immediate. That's not true. Not at first. Yes, the secrecy was necessary. But what I felt for you, what I feel for you, that was real. It is real. David knows about Belize. He's always suspected, but he could never prove it. This is his proof. This is how he breaks us. He's not offering you money to leave, Ava. He's blackmailing you to stay silent. If you leave, hell assume you know, and hell use that to destroy me. If you stay, hell use you to get to me. It's a checkmate. I stared at him, at the man I'd shared a life and a bed with for 6 years, and I didn't recognize him. The brilliant, wounded, controlling man I'd pitted and raged against was gone, replaced by a stranger capable of violence and concealment on a scale I couldn't comprehend. David Carter's voice echoed in my head. Ask him about the night of June 12th. Now I knew. The love story was a lie. The marriage was built on a secret far darker than I'd imagined. The performance at the gallery, the holding hands, the whispered conversations, it was all just another layer of the facade. A facade that was now cracking, revealing the rotten foundation beneath. Liam reached for me, his hand hovering over mine. Ava, please, you have to believe me. What I did was unforgivable. But what I feel for you is the only thing in my life that's ever been real. I looked at his hand, then at his face, so full of desperate hope and crushing guilt. The man I loved was a fiction. The man in front of me was a killer, or an accomplice to one, and David Carter held the key to the truth. I pulled my hand away, shrinking back against the passenger door. The space between us and the truck felt like a chasm. Take me back, I said, my voice a hollow echo. Ava, take me back to the city. Liam, I need to think. I need to be alone. The hope died in his eyes, replaced by a bleak, utter devastation. He didn't argue. He just nodded once, put the truck in gear, and pulled out of the alley, back into the flow of traffic, back towards a world that had just been irrevocably shattered. The drive back to the city was a journey through a frozen wasteland. The silence in the truck was no longer charged. It was dead, suffocating. I stared out the window, seeing nothing. The world had shifted on its axis. The man beside me wasn't the man I'd raged at, the man I'd pitted, the man whose hand I'd held just an hour ago. He was a stranger who had confessed to covering up a death. My marriage wasn't a gilded cage. It was a crime scene I'd been living in, blissfully unaware. Liam didn't try to speak. His knuckles were white on the wheel, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle ticking. The performance was over. The billionaire and his secret wife were gone. In their place were two people bound by a terrible secret. hurtling towards an inevitable crash. He didn't take me to the penthouse. He drove to a luxury hotel in the financial district, the kind of place where discretion was part of the exorbitant price. He pulled up under the porte-cochere. A valet stepped forward, but Liam waved him off. "I've booked you a suite under the name Mitchell," he said, his voice flat, devoid of all emotion. He handed me a key card from the console. "Top floor. It's secure. No one knows you're here." I took the card, my fingers numb. "And you?" "I have the board meeting. The one David called." He finally looked at me, and the anguish in his eyes was raw, unguarded. "Ava, I know you have no reason to believe me, but what I told you, it's the truth, the whole truth. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you. Please, be careful. David will come for you now. Hell, think you're vulnerable." "I am vulnerable," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. He flinched. "I'll post security outside your door. Men I trust. They won't let anyone near you." He hesitated, a world of unsaid things hanging in the air between us. "When the meeting is over, we need to talk." I didn't answer. I just opened the door and got out. The afternoon sun was bright, mocking. I didn't look back as I walked through the revolving doors into the cool, marble-clad lobby. I felt his eyes on me until the door closed, sealing me in a different kind of silence. The suite was obscenely large, a monument to sterile luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking, dizzying view of the city. I stood in the center of the living room, feeling like an intruder. The art gallery felt like a lifetime ago. The photo of us in the motel, now plastered across the internet, felt like a cruel joke. My phone buzzed incessantly. Friends, former colleagues, my mother. I sent her a quick text. "I'm safe. I'll explain later. I love you." Then I silenced it. I couldn't face the world. Not yet. David Carter's offer echoed in my mind. A generous severance package. Walk away with dignity. Had known exactly which nerve to strike. Had dangled the truth like a poisoned apple. And I'd taken a bite. Now the toxin was spreading, turning everything I thought I knew to rot. Ask him about the night of June 12th. I walked to the minibar, poured a tiny bottle of whiskey into a glass, and drank it in one burning gulp. The heat in my throat was a welcome distraction from the cold in my soul. I needed facts, not Liam's confession, not David's insinuations. Facts. I opened my laptop, connecting through the hotel's VPN. I started digging, not into Liam. I was too afraid of what I'd find. Into Arthur Carter, his disappearance, the old scandal that ruined Liam's father. The public record was sparse. Arthur Carter, co-founder of Sterling Carter Software, vanished amid an embezzlement scandal 20 years ago. Liam's father, Robert Sterling, took the fall, was bankrupted, and later died by suicide. Arthur was never found, presumed to have fled the country with the money. The case was cold. I dug deeper, into Belizean news archives, a tedious process with my rudimentary Spanish, obituaries, local papers from 6 years ago, and then I found it, a small, 3-paragraph item in a regional Belizean paper. American expatriate found deceased. The name was an alias, John Bragg, but the description, an elderly American businessman, in poor health, living in a villa near San Pedro, found by his housekeeper after an apparent fall, ruled a death by natural causes due to a pre-existing cerebral hemorrhage. The date of death was listed as June 11th, 6 years ago, the day before Liam said he confronted him, the day before the fight. A cold, clear certainty cut through the fog of my shock. Liam had lit. Not about the confrontation, perhaps, but about the sequence, about the cause of death. I leaned back, my heart pounding. What did it mean? Had Arthur already been dead when Liam found him? Had the fight been a fiction? Or was the official report wrong? Bought off. My email pinged. An alert ID set up years ago for any mentions of my own name or graphic design, plus Ava in major publications. A new hit from the San Francisco Chronicle's business section. The headline made my blood run cold. Behind the fairy tale, questions swirl about Sterling's secret wife. I clicked. The article was a masterpiece of insinuation. It mentioned my modest background, my struggling freelance career. It quoted anonymous sources close to the Sterling camp expressing surprise and concern about the haste and secrecy of the marriage. It hinted at a significant disparity in premarital assets and noted pointedly that I kept my maiden name, often a tactic in high-net-worth divorces. It ended with a seemingly innocuous question. What did Ava Mitchell know? And when did she know it? It was David's opening salvo. He was painting me as a gold digger. An opportunist had caught a lonely billionaire at a vulnerable time. He was chipping away at the love story, preparing the ground for something worse. The article didn't mention Belize or Arthur Carter. Not yet. This was the soft kill, the character assassination. The door to the suite clicked open. I jumped, my hand flying to my chest. A man in a dark suit stepped in, gave a brief nod. Mrs. Sterling. Mr. Sterling asked me to ensure you have everything you need. I'll be outside. He stepped back out, closing the door. Security. My jailer. The feeling of being trapped was sudden and overwhelming. Trapped by Liam's secrets, by David's machinations, by my own gilded cage. I couldn't stay here. I had to move. I had to know. I went to the bedroom, changed out of the cashmere sweater and into a hoodie and jeans from the bags Liam had bought, discarding the costume. I stuffed my laptop, phone, and wallet into a backpack. I needed to get out, to think somewhere I wasn't surrounded by Liam's money and Liam's guards. I peered out the door. The security agent was standing a polite distance down the hall, his back to me. I slipped out, closing the door softly, and walked quickly in the opposite direction, towards the service elevators. My heart hammered against my ribs. I half expected a hand on my shoulder, Liam's voice calling me back. The service elevator took me down to a loading dock. I walked out into an alley, blinking in the afternoon sun. I was free. For now. I walked for blocks, my mind racing. I needed someone I could trust, someone outside of Liam's world. I thought of Greta, the gallery owner. Shed seemed genuine, and she was connected. She might know things. I found a quiet cafe, ordered a coffee, and used a public terminal to look up her gallery's number. I called from the cafe's phone. Greta Voorhees Gallery. Greta, it's Ava Mitchell. We met this morning. A pause. Ava, my dear, I saw the papers. Quite a whirlwind. Are you all right? I need to talk. Somewhere discreet. Can you meet me? She didn't hesitate. There's a small sculpture garden near the museum. The one with the bronze horses. Do you know it? I can be there in 20 minutes. I'll be there. The sculpture garden was a peaceful oasis, mostly empty at this time of day. I sat on a bench near the looming, graceful forms of the running horses, their metal flanks warm from the sun. Greta arrived 5 minutes later, wearing a stylish trench coat and a look of concern. My dear, you look pale as a ghost, she said, sitting beside me. This must be overwhelming. It is, I admitted. Greta, you've known Liam a long time, since he was a young man, burning with ambition and anger after his father's death. Yes. What do you know about Arthur Carter? Her sharp eyes narrowed. Ah, so it's about that. I wondered when that old ghost would rattle its chains. She sighed. Arthur was a charming viper. He destroyed Robert Sterling, Liam's father, and vanished. Liam has been obsessed with finding him, with justice. Did he ever find him? She studied me for a long moment. Why do you ask? I took a risk, because I think he did, and I think something happened. Greta looked away, her gaze on the bronze horses. About 6 years ago, Liam changed. The anger was still there, but it was banked, turned inward. He became more secretive, more driven. And yet, sadder, he acquired a great deal of liquid cash around that time, from sources he wouldn't discuss. And then, a few weeks later, he suddenly got married. To you. She looked back at me. I never put the two things together until recently. Until David Carter started making noises. What kind of noises? He came to see me last month, asking about Liam's state of mind, hinting that Liam had secrets that could destroy Sterling Tech. He asked if I knew anything about Arthur Carter's whereabouts, or about any unusual expenditures Liam might have made years ago. I told him nothing. I don't like David Carter. He has his father's eyes. She placed a hand over mine. Ava, be careful. You're in a very dangerous game. These men, their feud has consumed them. It will consume anything in its path, including me. I said softly, especially you. She replied, you're the wild card. Liam's one point of humanity. That makes you his greatest strength and his most exploitable weakness. David knows that. My phone buzzed. A news alert. I pulled it out. Breaking. Sterling Tech board meeting erupts in chaos. CEO Liam Sterling's leadership challenged. I showed it to Greta. Her face tightened. It started. I stood up. I have to go. Where? I don't know. But I can't hide anymore. I left her in the garden, her worried gaze following me. I hailed a cab. Sterling Tower. I told the driver. The cab crawled through downtown traffic. I pulled out my laptop, connecting to my hotspot. I needed to see it. I found a live financial news feed. The ticker at the bottom showed SDLR stock was down 8% and falling. The cheer in red, boardroom showdown at Sterling Tech. A reporter stood outside Sterling Tower, speaking into a microphone. That unprecedented scenes inside. Sources tell us several major institutional investors, led by Carter Holdings, are demanding answers from CEO Liam Sterling regarding the sudden revelation of his secret marriage and questions about his judgment. The mood is described as tense, with calls for an independent review of corporate governance. My cab pulled up. The plaza in front of the tower was swarming with reporters and cameras. I paid the driver, pulled my hood up, and slipped out, blending with a group of people entering the building. I bypassed the main lobby, heading for the private elevator bank Liam had used. I still had the old keycard. I swiped it. A red light. Denied. Had deactivated it. Of course he had. I stood there, feeling helpless. The elevator doors opened, and a man stepped out. He was in his 50s, with a harried expression, holding a stack of files. He was one of Liam's VPs, a man named Collins. I'd seen his picture in annual reports. Mr. Collins. He looked at me, distracted, then did a double take. Mrs. Sterling, I need to get upstairs. To Liam. He looked pained. I don't think that's advisable. It's a war zone up there. Carter is. He's on a rampage. Please. It's important. He hesitated, then sighed. All right, but you didn't get this from me. He swiped his own card, held the door. I stepped in, and we ascended. How bad is it? I asked as the numbers climbed. Carter has 3 board members in his pocket. He's waving that damn newspaper article about you, calling Liam emotionally compromised, a liability. He's demanding a vote of no confidence. He doesn't have the votes to oust Liam. Not yet, but he's shaking the tree. Hard. The big funds are nervous. The stock drop is all the ammunition he needs. The doors opened on the executive floor. The usual quiet hum was replaced by a palpable tension. Assistants looked shell-shocked. Through the open door of the boardroom, I could hear a voice, cold and clear, slicing through the air, a pattern of reckless personal behavior that now directly threatens shareholder value. First, the bizarre secrecy of a 6-year marriage. Now, the circus of its revelation. What's next? Sterling, what other secrets are you hiding? I walked to the doorway. The boardroom was all dark wood and glass. Liam sat at the head of the table, his posture rigid, his face a mask of icy calm. But I could see the tension in the set of his shoulders. David Carter stood at the other end, leaning on the table, addressing the room. He was taller than I'd imagined, with sharp, intelligent features and the cold, assessing eyes Greta had described. My personal life is not a matter for this board, Liam said, his voice dangerously quiet. It is when it causes an 8% drop in our market cap in 3 hours. Carter shot back. When it distracts you, makes you vulnerable. Leadership requires trust, Sterling, and you've shown a staggering lack of it. To your investors, to this board, to your own wife. From what I hear, a few board members shifted uncomfortably. Carter's gaze swept the room and landed on me, standing in the doorway. A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. Ah, speak of the angel, Mrs. Sterling. How convenient. Come to stand by your husband. Or have you heard enough? Every head in the room turned. Liam's eyes snapped to me, flashing with alarm, then with a fierce, protective anger. Ava, you shouldn't be here. I think she should. Carter said, smoothly. I think the board should hear from the woman at the center of this drama. Mrs. Sterling, perhaps you can enlighten us. Did you know, when you married Liam 6 years ago, that he was in Belize the week before, tying up loose ends from a family tragedy? The room went utterly silent. The air was sucked out of it. Liam was on his feet, his chair scraping back. That's enough. Carter, why? Is it a secret? Carter's eyes gleamed with triumph. He had played his card, the real one. Belize, June, a dead man, an accident, perhaps, or something that required a great deal of money to make go away. Money that just happened to appear in Sterling's accounts right before his whirlwind wedding. Quite the coincidence. The board members were staring, horrified. This was no longer about gossip. This was about potential criminal liability. Liam looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw the truth. Not the whole truth, perhaps, but the truth of his fear. David Carter had the facts. He was weaving them into a noose. All the confusion, the hurt, the betrayal inside me crystallized into a single, cold point of clarity. David Carter was the enemy. He was using me, using a half-truth, to destroy Liam. And if Liam fell, David won. Head, get Sterling, tech head, get everything. The man who had ruined Liam's father would triumph. I couldn't let that happen. Not until I knew the full story. Not until I decided for myself who Liam really was. I walked into the room, my footsteps loud on the polished floor. I stopped beside Liam's chair. I didn't look at him. I looked at David Carter. Mr. Carter, I said, my voice clear and steady, echoing in the silent room. You seem very interested in my marriage, in dates, in money, in old tragedies, what you call reckless personal behavior. I call a private matter. What you're insinuating about Belize is a serious accusation, one you should be very careful about making without proof. I turned my gaze to the stunned board members. My husband has dedicated his life to this company, to righting the wrong that was done to his family. That dedication, that relentless pursuit of justice, is what has built the value in this room. Not gossip, not innuendo. I finally looked at Liam. His eyes were wide with shock, with a dawning, desperate hope. I reached down and took his hand, the one that was clenched into a fist on the table. I pried it open and laced my fingers through his. His hand was cold. I gave it a squeeze. I am Liam Sterling's wife, I said, turning back to the board. And I stand with him, not because of some secret or some payoff, but because I know the man he is, and whatever challenges we face, we'll face them together, as a team. The room was dead, silent for a full 5 seconds. Then, an older board member, Mrs. Eldridge, a formidable woman with steel-gray hair, cleared her throat. Well, she said, her voice dry, that seems clear enough. David, you've brought serious allegations to this table. Allegations that appear to be based on personal animus and speculation. Do you have any actual, concrete evidence of wrongdoing by Mr. Sterling? A police report from Belize. A financial audit showing illicit funds. David's smile had vanished. He glared at me with pure, undiluted hatred. He had not expected this. Had expected me to crumble, to run. Had expected to drive a wedge. Instead, ID publicly cemented our alliance. The evidence is being compiled, he said tightly. Then bring it to the board when it is compiled, Mrs. Eldridge said. Not before. In the meantime, this discussion is over. Liam, you have the board's continued confidence. For now, I suggest you and your wife get your story straight and get it to the press. This circus ends today. She stood, gathering her papers. The meeting was effectively over. The board members filed out, casting curious, uneasy glances at Liam and me. David Carter was the last to leave. He stopped in front of me, his voice a low, venomous hiss only we could hear. A brave performance, Mrs. Sterling. Foolish, but brave. You have no idea what you're defending, or what you've just gotten yourself into. The offer is off the table. You're in the game now, and in my games, people get hurt. He turned and strode out, and then it was just Liam and me, standing in the empty, sunlit boardroom, the ghost of his confession and the echo of my defense hanging between us. He turned to me, his eyes searching my face. Why? The single word was raw, ragged. Why did you do that? After what I told you. I did it because David Carter is a monster, I said, pulling my hand from his. The performance was over. I did it because whatever you did, you don't deserve to be destroyed by him. Not like that. I took a step back, putting space between us. But don't mistake that for forgiveness, Liam, or for trust. We're a team because we have to be, not because we are. The hope in his eyes died, replaced by a weary acceptance. He nodded slowly. All right, a team of necessity. I can work with that. Good, I said, my voice brittle. Now, we have a press circus to manage. Mrs. Eldridge is right. We need to get ahead of this. A joint statement, an interview, maybe. We sell the fairy tale. Harder than ever. Ava, he began, but I cut him off. Not now. Liam, we have a job to do. Tell me what you need me to do. He looked at me for a long moment, then gave a single, sharp nod. The CEO was back. The vulnerable man was locked away. All right, well, draft a statement. Then, we do a sit-down interview with someone friendly. We control the narrative completely. And after that, I asked, after that, he said, his gaze turning towards the window, towards the city where his enemy was plotting. We find out what David's next move is, and we beat him to it. But as I stood there, in the boardroom of the empire had built, I knew the real battle wasn't with David Carter. It was in this room, between the two of us, and I had no idea who, if anyone, could win it. The silence in Liam's office after the boardroom exodus was heavier than before. The veneer of the team was paper-thin, stretched taut over a chasm of lies and half-truths. He moved to his desk, all business, the mask firmly back in place. We have about 4 hours before the evening news cycles, he said, his voice clipped. We need a statement, conciliatory but firm, acknowledges the surprise, emphasizes privacy, reaffirms commitment to Sterling Tech. He was already typing on his computer, pulling up a document. We'll release it jointly, from both of us. Then, at 7 p.m., we do a live, 10-minute interview with Chloe Bennett from CNB. She's fair. She'll stick to agreed-upon questions. He was in his element, the master strategist, compartmentalizing the emotional wreckage to deal with the immediate threat. I felt adrift, a tool to be deployed. What are the agreed-upon questions? He turned the screen towards me. A list. How did you meet? Why the secrecy? How does this affect Sterling Tech? A message to investors. Plans for the future. softballs, designed to let us craft a perfect, pat little story. It's sanitized, I said, flatly. It's survival. He countered, not looking at me. We give them the narrative. We don't let them dig. Not yet. And David, he won't just let this lie. He has the Belize story. Liam's jaw tightened. E a suspicions. Innuendo. The official record in Belize says natural causes. He has no police report. No witnesses. It's a threat, not a weapon. Yet, he's hoping the pressure will make me slip. Or make you run. We don't slip. We don't run. We stand our ground. And we attack. Attack how? He finally looked at me, and his eyes held a cold, calculated fire. David's company, Crite Systems. Their next-gen firewall is a dud. I have the lab reports. Their lead engineer is about to defect, with evidence of falsified test data. I've been holding it, waiting for the right moment to crater their stock before our Ethelred launch. A grim smile touched his lips. The moment is now. While he's focused on my personal life, it'll eviscerate his professional one. A leak to the Wall Street Journal. ITLL run tomorrow morning. The ruthlessness of it took my breath away. This was the Liam Sterling the world knew. The shark. So we fight fire with a nuclear option. We fight to win. Ava, this isn't a game. It's a war for control of a $100 billion market. David started it by bringing you into it. I'm going to finish it. He pushed back from his desk. Now, the statement. Let's draft it. For the next hour, we crafted lies. Beautiful, heartfelt, convincing lies. We painted a picture of a love so intense we needed to protect it from the glare of the public eye. We spoke of shared values, of my thriving career, of our desire for a normal foundation. It was masterful. By the time we sent it to the PR team for distribution, I almost believed it myself. The interview was at a neutral studio. Chloe Bennett was polished and professional. Liam was magnetic, charming even, his arm around me on the small sofa, his gaze tender when it met mine. I smiled. I leaned into him. I answered questions about our little secret with practiced, shy warmth. I was acting again, but this time, the role felt more hollow, more dangerous. I was legitimizing the fiction, weaving myself deeper into the tapestry of his deception. After the interview, as a stylist touched up my makeup, Liam's phone buzzed. He checked it, and the forced ease vanished from his face. We need to go. Now. What is it? The Crite leak. It's gone out early. Someone jumped the gun. His expression was dark. And David's responding. Not how I expected. In the car back to the penthouse had insisted hotels were no longer safe. He showed me the news on his phone. The journal story was live. Crite Systems Sentinel firewall under scrutiny. Whistleblower alleges fraud. The stock was in freefall. Down 22% in after-hours trading. But the headline below it was more chilling. Carter hits back. Alleges Sterling Tech's Ethelred built on stolen IP. What? I gasped, scanning the article. It was vague, citing unnamed sources. But it claimed the core architecture of Ethelred was based on proprietary research developed by a now-defunct startup that Sterling Tech had squeezed out of business years ago. It was the same playbook, insinuation, doubt, a mirror image of his own attack. It's a desperation move. Liam snarled. A lie, but it will cause confusion, slow adoption, give his investors a reason to hold on. He slammed his hand against the seat. He's smarter than I gave him credit for. He's not just attacking me, he's attacking the product, the company's future. The car pulled into the underground garage of the penthouse. The sense of siege was immediate. As we stepped into the private elevator, Liam's personal phone rang. He looked at the number, his face hardening further. It's Mark, he answered, putting it on speaker. You have 10 seconds. Mark's voice was strained, panicked. Liam, listen to me. You have to call off the dogs. The story, the whistleblower, it's too much. He's going to release everything. You work for me now, Mark. Liam's voice was icy. I work for the man who isn't going to get me killed. Mark shot back. David is unhinged. He has the documents. Liam, the real documents from Belize, not the official report, the photos from the housekeeper, the bank transfers to the local police chief. He's going to the SEC, to the FBI. He's going to bury you, and he's going to use your wife to do it. He's planning a press conference for tomorrow. He's going to lay it all out, the cover-up, the money, the timeline. He's going to say Ava was part of it, that the marriage was a sham to launder the funds and create an alibi. The blood drained from my face. Liam's knuckles were white around the phone. Where is he? I don't know. He's gone to ground. But he has the files. Liam, he showed me. It's over. Unless you deal. He wants you to step down. Sell him your voting shares at a 40% discount. He gets sterling. You walk away with your freedom, and he loses the evidence. And Ava, Liam's voice was deadly quiet. She walks too, as long as she stays quiet. It's the only way. Liam was silent for a long moment. The elevator doors opened into the penthouse foyer. Where are you? Mark. Somewhere safe. Promise me. Liam. Call off the Krite story. Make a deal, or we're all going down. The line went dead. Liam stood perfectly still in the middle of the vast, empty living room. The city lights glittered. Indifferent, the carefully constructed walls of our defense were crumbling. David wasn't just playing dirty, he had a bomb, and his finger was on the trigger. He's bluffing, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. The housekeeper photos, the bank transfers, if he has those, he's not bluffing. Liam said softly. He walked to the window, staring out. I was careful, but I was also 28, terrified, and in a foreign country. I missed something. The housekeeper. I paid her, generously, but David could have found her, paid her more, or threatened her. He turned to face me, and for the first time, I saw something like defeat in his eyes. He wins. He's checkmated me. The word hung in the air. The billionaire brought low, not by a rival, but by the ghost of his own past mistake. So that's it, I asked, anger suddenly flaring, hot and bright, cutting through the fear. You're just going to give up, hand him everything. After all of this, what choice do I have? Ava, he exploded, the calm shattering. If he goes public with that, it's not just my company. It's prison. It's watching you drag through the mud as my accomplice. I brought you into this mess. I won't let you go down with me. You don't get to make that choice for me either. I shouted back. You've been making choices for me for 6 years. You chose to hide me. You chose to lie to me. You chose to marry me for God knows what reason. Well, I'm choosing now. I'm not letting that snake win. Not like this. He stared at me, shocked by the vehemence. What are you saying? I'm saying we fight, I said, the plan forming in my mind even as I spoke. Born of sheer, desperate fury. He has documents. We get them first. He has a housekeeper. We find her. He's having a press conference. We give him a reason to cancel it. How? He's gone to ground. Mark doesn't know where he is. Mark knows more than he's saying, I said, thinking fast. He's scared. He called you. He wants a deal. That means he's not completely loyal to David. He's a vulnerability. Liam's eyes narrowed. The strategist coming back online. You think we can turn him? I think we can use him. I corrected. He gave you this warning. Why? Maybe he wants a better deal. From you. Maybe he's realized David is a losing bet. You said it yourself. He knows all your protocols. He must know David's too. A slow, grim light of understanding dawned in Liam's eyes. David's arrogant. He'll want to gloat. To be in control for the press conference. He won't be hiding in a bunker. He'll be somewhere he feels powerful. In control. One of his properties. I said. Somewhere with tight security. But where he can stage a media event. Liam was already moving, pulling out a tablet, his fingers flying. He has a penthouse in the Drake Tower, a ranch in Sonoma, a yacht, The Revenge. Currently moored in the marina. He pulled up schematics, security details. The depth of his intelligence on his rival was frightening. The yacht. It's the most controlled environment. Isolated. He can bring the press out on tenders. It's a stage. It's where he'd do it. Can we get on it? His security is good. Not impenetrable, but good. A direct assault is out. He looked at me, a appraising glint in his eye. But he's expecting a call from me. To negotiate. To capitulate. I saw it then. The gambit. The insane, reckless gambit. You call him. You play along. You agree to meet. To discuss terms. On the yacht. Liam nodded. Alone. That's what hell demand. Hell want to see me surrender in person. But you won't be alone. I said, my heart hammering. I'll be there. Ava. No. It's too dangerous. Hell have armed security. He won't be expecting me. I insisted. He thinks I'm a liability. A scared mouse. He thinks after today. After the boardroom. I'm just playing a part. He won't see me as a threat. You'll be the distraction. I'll be the ghost. And do what? Even if you get on board. What's the objective? We can't just take the documents at gunpoint. We don't need the documents. I said, the final piece clicking into place. We need the narrative. We need a bigger story. I looked at the city, at the media towers glowing in the night. You said the yacht is a stage. So we give the audience a different show. One they can't ignore. Liam was staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. The quiet, ignored wife from the penthouse was gone. In her place was someone with nothing left to lose, fueled by a righteous anger and a sharp, tactical mind. Head never bothered to know. What's the play, Ava? He asked, his voice a mix of respect and fear. I told him. It was insane. It was reckless. It relied on timing, on luck, on David's arrogance, and on a piece of my own past ID buried long ago. A minor in computer forensics, a youthful dalliance with gray hat hacking, skills ID used to help friends recover lost data, skills Liam knew nothing about. When I finished, he was silent for a full minute. Then, a slow, fierce, and utterly terrifying smile spread across his face. It was the smile of a man who had been backed into a corner and had just seen a way to tear the whole building down. All right, Mrs. Sterling, he said, the old, dangerous confidence flooding back into his voice. Let's go to war. The next 12 hours were a blur of frantic, clandestine activity. Liam made the call to David. His performance, a masterpiece of weary defeat. He agreed, in principle, to discuss terms. David, triumphant, condescending, agreed to a meeting on the Revenge at 10 a.m. Come alone, Sterling, or the deal is off, and the files go to the press at noon. While Liam negotiated, I was working from an old, encrypted cloud drive. I pulled out tools I hadn't touched in years. Kali Linux, packet sniffers, exploit frameworks. I felt a strange, familiar thrill, mixed with profound fear. I was hacking the internal communications and security server of a superyacht. It was insane. Liam provided the yacht satellite IP and what he knew of its network, purchased from a bribed former crew member years ago. It was a backdoor, a vulnerability David's people had missed. I spent the night probing, a digital ghost in the machine, looking for a way in. Just before dawn, I found it, an unpatched vulnerability in the onboard media server's remote access protocol. A simple buffer overflow. Child's play. Once. My fingers flew over the keyboard, writing a script. My heart in my throat. One wrong move. An ID trigger an alert. Execute. A new command prompt opened on my screen. A blinking cursor on the yacht's main server. I was in. I had read-only access, but it was enough. I navigated file directories. My breath held, and there it was, a folder labeled /Carter Blackwater. Inside, PDF scans, the Belizean police report with handwritten annotations, photos of an elderly man on a tile floor, spreadsheets of wire transfers from numbered accounts to a Chief Molina, and a video file, time-stamped from a security camera in the villa's living room. My hand shook as I clicked it. The video was grainy, silent. It showed Liam, younger, angrier, bursting into a sunlit room. Arthur Carter, frail and sneering, stood up. They argued. Liam shoved him. Arthur stumbled back, his arms flailing, and his head struck the corner of a heavy stone coffee table with a sickening, silent impact. He crumpled and didn't move. Liam stood frozen, horror dawning on his face. Then he rushed forward, felt for a pulse, recoiled. He looked around wildly, then ran out of frame. It was exactly as Head said. A shove, a tragic accident, not murder. But it was also undeniable. And the cover-up, the bribes, the falsified report, that was the crime. I copied everything. Not to my machine, too risky. I streamed it, encrypted, to a secure Dropbox Liam had set up. The evidence was now in our hands. 2. A double-edged sword. Next, I found the security camera feeds. I located the main salon, where the meeting would be. I planted a remote access demon, a ghost in the system that would give me control of that one camera at a time of my choosing. By 8 a.m., it was done. I was exhausted, wired on adrenaline and terrible coffee. Liam had assembled a small, trusted team. 2 former Special Forces security details had used for personal protection in conflict zones. They were quiet, professional, and asked no questions. Their job was to get me onto the yacht unseen. As a service crew member delivering premium catering, an order Liam had arranged as part of his surrender meeting. At 9:30 a.m., dressed in a white catering uniform, my hair tucked under a cap, I was on a small launch approaching the massive, gleaming hull of the Revenge. It was a floating fortress. My heart was a drum against my ribs. In my pocket was a slim, powerful signal jammer and a miniaturized wireless transmitter linked to my laptop, which was now in the hands of one of Liam's men on a chase boat a quarter-mile away. I was waved aboard by a bored crew member. I kept my head down, carrying a case of vintage champagne. I followed another staffer to the galley. The main salon was one deck up. I could hear voices, the clink of glasses. The press was already here. A dozen select reporters, invited for the major announcement. At 9:55, Liam's launch arrived. I watched from a porthole as he walked up the passerelle, alone, wearing a simple navy suit. He looked calm, resigned, the perfect picture of a defeated man coming to terms. He was ushered into the main salon. Through my earpiece, a tiny, almost invisible bud, I heard the muffled sounds of the room, murmuring voices, the click of cameras, David Carter's voice, amplified, oily with triumph. Liam, so glad you could see reason. Welcome to the end of the line. I moved. I left the galley, heading for the service stairwell that led to the deck above the salon. My job was to get to the AV control closet adjacent to it. The crew was preoccupied with the event. No one looked twice at a catering staffer. I found the closet. It was unlocked. Inside, a rack of equipment, monitors showing the camera feeds. I found the feed for the main salon. There they were. Liam, standing in the center of the room. David, flanked by 2 hulking bodyguards, facing a semicircle of reporters. Mark was there too, hovering in the background, looking pale and nervous. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, David began, a magnanimous smile on his face. Thank you for coming on such short notice. What you're about to witness is more than a business story. It's a story of justice, long delayed. For years, Liam Sterling has been portrayed as a visionary, a man who overcame tragedy. The truth is far darker. The tragedy he overcame was one he created. The reporters leaned in, cameras whirring. David held up a tablet. On this device are documents, photographs, and video evidence that prove Liam Sterling was responsible for the death of Arthur Carter. and that he engaged in a systematic cover-up, including bribery of foreign officials, to conceal his crime. Furthermore, evidence suggests his marriage to Ava Mitchell was, at least in part, a device to facilitate the laundering of funds used in this cover-up and to create a personal alibi. A gasp went through the room. Cameras flashed, focusing on Liam's stony face. Mr. Sterling has agreed to meet here today to resign his position at Sterling Tech and to transfer his controlling shares to Carter Holdings. In light of this evidence, a measure, perhaps, of atonement, David turned to Liam. The floor is yours. Sterling, do you have anything to say before you sign? This was the moment. The cameras were on Liam. The world was watching. David was poised for his ultimate victory. Liam didn't look at the papers David's lawyer placed on the table. He looked directly into the cameras. His expression wasn't defeated. It was calm, resolute. I have only one thing to say, David. His voice was clear, strong. You're right. This is a story of justice. He paused. David's smile faltered. Just for a second. But you have the wrong villain. I took a deep breath, my finger hovering over the button on the jammer in my pocket. I pressed it, a focused EMP pulse, designed to disable wireless transmissions in a tight radius for 30 seconds. The live feeds to the outside world would glitch. But the onboard cameras, on a wired system, would keep rolling, their feed now hijacked by me. On the monitor, I saw the reporters frown, tapping their equipment. David looked momentarily confused. Liam's voice never wavered. The evidence you have, David, is real. I did confront Arthur Carter. He did fall. I did cover it up. I was wrong. I was guilty of panic, of obstruction. But there's a piece of the video you're not showing. A piece your father recorded. David's face went white. What are you talking about? You see, Liam continued, as if giving a boardroom presentation. Arthur Carter was a paranoid man. He had cameras everywhere, including one your father didn't know about, hidden in a bookcase, a camera that kept recording after the fall, a camera that recorded Arthur Carter, alone in the room, groaning, moving, trying to get up, and then your father walking in. The room was utterly silent. The reporters were frozen. Your father, David, who had followed me there, who saw his chance, who walked over to the man who was his former partner, his friend, and who placed a pillow over his face and held it there until he stopped moving. The words hung in the air. Monstrous. Unbelievable. You're lying, David roared, but the terror in his eyes was real. The video is in the same folder as your evidence, David, Liam said, his gaze like ice. File name, truth.avi. You never watched the whole thing, did you? You just saw the part that implicated me. My IT people found the rest last night, along with the digital fingerprints of your father accessing the villa's security system remotely just before the incident. He didn't just find Arthur. He finished him, and he framed me for the murder. I was already working. From my laptop on the chase boat, I accessed the demon. I didn't play the video, we didn't have it. It was a bluff, a brilliant, terrifying bluff. Instead, I switched the feed, the monitors in the press salon, the ones meant to show David's evidence, flickered. Then they displayed a different file from the Blackwater folder, the spreadsheet of wire transfers. But I de-edited it. At the bottom, new entries appeared. Large payments from a shell company traced to David Carter, dated over the last 2 years. Payments labeled housekeeper, silence. Police chief, revised report. Mark, ongoing services. The reporters surged forward, cameras zooming in on the screen. David stared, his mouth agape. Mark took a step back, his face a mask of horror. You fabricated this. David sputtered, just like you fabricated the story about Ethelred's IP. Liam shot back, his voice rising, just like you bullied and bribed to get what you wanted. The game is up, David. You're not exposing a crime. You're trying to perpetrate one, extortion, fraud. And now, the whole world is watching. The jammers' 30 seconds were up. The live feeds to the news networks snapped back online, broadcasting not David's triumph, but his unraveling. They were broadcasting the fake spreadsheet, David's stunned panic, Mark's guilt. Chaos erupted. David shouted at his guards, "Get them out! Shut it down!" He lunged for Liam, but Liam was ready. He sidestepped, and as David stumbled past, one of the reporters, actually one of Liam's security men, moved with practiced ease, putting David in a restrained hold. It was over. In 10 minutes, the narrative had been utterly inverted. Liam was no longer the villain. He was the victim of a double cross, exposing a deeper crime. David wasn't the avenger. He was the criminal, trying to blackmail his way to power. I slipped out of the AV closet, back down the service stairs, my part done. As I reached the lower deck, heading for the crew launch, I saw Mark, trying to slip away unnoticed. Our eyes met. In his, I saw sheer, animal panic. He turned and ran towards the stern. I didn't follow. My legs were jelly. I made it to the launch, which immediately pulled away from the monstrous yacht. On the chase boat, I collapsed onto a seat, trembling uncontrollably. It was done. An hour later, back at the penthouse, Liam found me. He was surrounded by his security team, his lawyers already on speakerphone, managing the fallout. But his eyes found mine across the room. He walked over, dismissing the others with a look. We were alone. "The video," I started, my voice shaky. "The part about his father. It was a bluff. We didn't have that." "I know," he said quietly, but he didn't. And the altered spreadsheet, the timing, it created enough doubt to blow his story to pieces. The press has what they love more than truth, a better story. The fallen heir trying to frame the righteous son. They'll run with it. The SEC will investigate him now. The FBI will be looking at his finances, not mine. And the real video, the real evidence, in our possession, we'll deal with it, with lawyers. It's messy. There will be consequences for me, but not prison, not ruin, not with David discredited. He took a step closer. "You were incredible. The hack, the jammer, the idea to alter the files in real time. You saved everything." "Ava." I looked up at him. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the cold, hard knowledge. "You lied to me, Liam. Again. You let me believe it was an accident, that you'd covered it up in a panic. But you saw Arthur move. You knew he might have lived, and you still left. You still covered it up. You let me defend a lie." He didn't deny it. His shoulders slumped. "I know. I was a coward. I saw him move, and I ran. I was afraid if he lived. Head talk. If he died, I was a murderer. I chose the path that seemed less damning in the moment. It was the worst decision of my life, until I decided to lie to you about it." He reached out, but let his hand fall. "I don't expect you to understand, or to forgive me, but everything I've done since that day, every wall I built, every terrible choice, it was to outrun that moment. And I dragged you into the race." The confession was quieter, more devastating than the first. The full, ugly truth. Not a tragic accident, but a moment of cowardice that defined a decade of his life. And 6 years of mine. "What happens now, Liam?" I asked, the fatigue so deep it was in my bones. "Now," he said, looking out at the city where his victory was being written in headlines, "I think that's up to you. The team, the partnership of necessity. It got us through the battle, the war." He met my eyes, his own filled with a desperate, hopeless love. "The war for us, that's yours to call. You have all the evidence now, all the truth. You can walk away. I won't stop you. It'll give you everything. Or," he took a ragged breath, "or you can stay, and we can try to build something real, out of the wreckage. No more walls, no more secrets, just the truth, however ugly, and whatever comes after." He placed a single key card on the table between us. It was for the penthouse, Then, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me alone with the silence, the glittering city, and the most impossible choice of my life. The silence after Liam left was absolute. The penthouse, vast and gleaming, felt like a museum exhibit dedicated to a life ID never truly lived. The keycard had left on the glass coffee table was a tiny, accusing rectangle of black plastic, a ticket to stay in the gilded cage, or a key to lock it behind me forever. I didn't move. My body was a numb, hollow shell. All the adrenaline and fear and furious energy of the last 48 hours bled out, leaving only a deep, aching cold. The yacht, the hack, the bluff, it played on a loop behind my eyes. A chaotic film with Liam as the tragic hero and David as the vanquished villain. But I knew the director's cut. The scene had left on the cutting room floor. A young man watching an old enemy gasp for life and choosing to run. You have all the evidence now. Did I? I had the video of the shove, the fall. I had the evidence of the cover-up. I had Liam's confession of his cowardice. I had the visceral memory of David Carter's face as his world imploded. But I still didn't have the one piece of evidence I needed. Who Liam Sterling was, and who he could be. My phone buzzed, breaking the trance. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text from a number I didn't recognize. Saw the news. You were magnificent. Call me if you need anything. Greta. Even the outside world was pushing its way in, trying to shape the narrative. The headlines would be spinning already. Sterling vindicated in Yacht Showdown. Carter Empire crumbles. A love story for the ages. Part 2. The wife who stood by her man, who helped him vanquish the dragon. I stood up, my legs unsteady, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled below, a circuit board of light and ambition. Somewhere out there, David was in custody, his empire in ruins. Mark was probably cutting a deal with prosecutors. And Liam was in his study, or on the phone with his lawyers, securing his victory, managing the fallout. The CEO, the survivor. I thought of the girl I was 6 years ago, the one by the potted ferns, cynical about canapes and dazzled by a man's attention. She'd wanted adventure, romance, a love that felt epic. She'd gotten an epic. All right, a gothic horror of secrets and lies, with a chase scene. What did I want now? Not this emptiness, not this beautiful, sterile silence, not a marriage that was a business arrangement or a shared trauma bond. I went to the bedroom, his bedroom. ID always used the guest suite and opened the closet. My few things were shoved to one side. I pulled out an old duffel bag, the one ID used for weekend trips before my life became a series of monitored deliveries. I started packing, not the cashmere sweaters or the designer jeans Liam had bought. My own clothes, worn concert t-shirts, faded jeans, the comfortable sweater my mom had knitted. I packed my laptop, my sketchbooks, a few precious photos. It took 10 minutes. My entire identity fit into one bag. I slung it over my shoulder and walked back into the living room. I picked up the black key card. It felt heavy, final. I took the private elevator down to the garage. The security guard Liam had posted nodded at me, his expression carefully neutral. Mrs. Sterling. Car. No. Ill walk. A flicker of surprise, but he just nodded again. Mr. Sterling said, "You're free to come and go as you please." As I please, the phrase echoed in the concrete cavern. I hadn't pleased in 6 years. I walked out into the late afternoon. The air was cool, tinged with salt and exhaust. It felt real. I walked without direction, just putting distance between myself and the tower. I needed noise, chaos, ordinary life. I found a bustling pedestrian street, filled with tourists and shoppers and students. I bought a terrible coffee from a cart and sat on a public bench, watching people live their unextraordinary lives. My phone rang again. Liam. I watched it buzz, the screen flashing his name, the name that was now my name. 2. I let it go to voicemail. He didn't call again. The sun began to dip, painting the glass towers in shades of orange and gold. I realized where my feet had taken me. The old neighborhood. My old studio apartment was a few blocks away. I walked there, a ghost visiting a past life. The building was still there, a little shabbier. I looked up at the window of my old unit. Lights were on. Someone else's life now. I kept walking. To a small, divey bar we used to go to after work, my designer friends and I. I pushed the door open. The familiar smell of stale beer and fried food wrapped around me like a worn blanket. It was early. The place was mostly empty. I slid onto a stool at the end of the bar. The bartender, a guy with an impressive beard I didn't recognize, raised an eyebrow. "What can I get you?" "Whiskey." "Neat. The cheap kind." He poured, slid it over. I knocked it back. The burn of welcome. Grounding pain. "Rough day?" He asked amiably. "You have no idea." I muttered, signaling for another. I was halfway through the second drink when the door opened, letting in a slice of dusk and the sound of traffic. I didn't look up until a figure slid onto the stool next to me. Liam. He looked out of place. His suit was rumpled, his tie gone, the top button of his shirt undone. He looked exhausted and years older than he had on the yacht. He didn't look like a Victorious CEO. He just looked lost. The bartender came over. Liam shook his head. "Just a club soda. Thanks." His voice was hoarse. We sat in silence for a minute, staring at the row of bottles behind the bar. "How did you find me?" I asked finally, not looking at him. The ankle monitor was a bit obvious. He said, deadpan. Then he sighed. "I called your mother. I promised her you were safe. She said if I hurt you again, she'd use my internal organs for garden fertilizer. She also mentioned you loved this place when you were stressed." He took a sip of his club soda. "I didn't know that. There's a lot you don't know." "I know." He turned the glass in his hands. "I've spent the last 3 hours with lawyers and the board. Sterling stock is rebounding. David's in FBI custody, singing like a canary about his father's sins to try and save himself. The SEC is opening an investigation into Carter Holdings. My lawyers think the Belize matter. With David's credibility destroyed and his own crimes, it can be handled. A fine. Perhaps. No jail time. It's over. I won." He said it without any triumph. It was just a statement of fact. "Congratulations," I said, my voice flat. "It doesn't feel like winning." He said softly, "It feels like surviving a plane crash and standing in the wreckage, wondering why you're the only one left." That hit a nerve. I finally looked at him. The raw pain in his eyes was unmistakable. It wasn't for the company or the battle. It was for us. "Why are you here?" "Liam, to give you this." He reached into his pocket and placed a single, slim envelope on the bar between us. It wasn't legal-sized. It was small, cream-colored. "It's not a contract. It's a plain ticket. To anywhere, one way, and a key. To a small cottage in Big Sur. I bought it years ago. No one knows about it. Not Mark. Not the board. No one. It's in your name only. It's quiet. There's an ocean view. There's a studio with north light. For drawing." He swallowed. "If you want to go. If you never want to see me again. It's yours. No strings. No obligation. Just a place where you can breathe and decide what you want, without me in the room." I stared at the envelope. A getaway. A clean, beautiful exit. The ultimate severance package. Delivered not by an enemy, but by the man who had caused all the damage. It was the most generous and the most devastating thing he could have done. "You're letting me go," I whispered. "I'm giving you the choice." He corrected, his voice thick. "For the first time, I locked you up to keep you. Ava, now I'm setting you free, hoping you might choose to come back. But it has to be your choice. A real one, not made from fear or obligation, or because you're trapped in my mess." Tears blurred my vision. I blinked them back angrily. "And if I choose the cottage, if I choose to never come back. He looked at me then, and I saw the cost of his words. Then I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I loved the one good thing in my life so much that I broke it. And I'll hope, wherever you are, that you're happy, and I'll leave you alone. The sincerity was absolute. It was the truth. Finally, with no spin, no strategy, it was the most honest thing Head ever said to me. I looked from his shattered face to the envelope, the key to a new, quiet life, a life of my own. Then I looked back at the man who was my husband, the liar, the coward, the man who had fought a dragon for me, even if Head created the dragon in the first place, the man who had just handed me the one thing Head spent 6 years denying me, freedom. I thought of the cold penthouse. I thought of the lonely studio in Big Sur. I thought of a life defined by running away from Liam Sterling. Then I thought of the boardroom, and the way Head looked at me when I walked in, not with annoyance, but with alarm. I thought of the motel room, and the way Head torn up the divorce papers. I thought of the yacht, and the terrifying, perfect trust of the bluff we'd run together. I thought of the way his hand felt in mine, not as a performance, but in the dark of the truck, when the world was falling apart and we were the only two people in it. I didn't love the ghost Head shown me for 6 years. I didn't love the flawless CEO. I wasn't sure I could ever love the frightened young man who ran from a dying man. But the man sitting next to me on this sticky bar stool, broken by his own choices, offering me everything by offering me nothing. I saw him for the first time. Flawed, terribly, humanly flawed, guilty, remorseful, and desperately in love with me. Love wasn't enough, but it was a start, and for the first time, it was real. I picked up the envelope. I held it in my hands, feeling the weight of the ticket, the shape of the key inside. I saw the hope die in his eyes, replaced by a quiet, accepting grief. He thought I'd chosen. Slowly, deliberately, I tore the envelope in half, not with anger, but with finality. I dropped the pieces into his empty club soda glass, where they floated, sodden and useless. He stared at the mess in the glass, then at me, confusion and a dawning, impossible hope warring on his face. I don't want a cottage in Big Sur, I said, my voice clear in the quiet bar. I don't want a one-way ticket to anywhere. Ava, I'm not saying I forgive you. I cut him off. I'm not saying it's okay. What you did, the lie, the cover-up, the 6 years of silence, that's a debt, a big one, and you're going to spend a long time paying it off. To me, not with money, with truth, with transparency, with showing up. Every damn day. He was utterly still, hanging on every word. I'm saying the team isn't disbanding. I continued, but the terms are changing. New rules. Rule 1, no more walls. Of any kind. You get therapy for your guilt and your control issues. I might get some for marrying an emotionally stunted billionaire. Rule 2, we live together, in a place we choose. Together, not your penthouse. Somewhere that has room for both of us. Rule 3, I have a career, a real one. You will introduce me to your contacts, not as your wife, but as Ava Mitchell, graphic designer. You will not interfere. You will cheer from the sidelines. Rule 4, I took a shaky breath. We start over, from right now. No more secret marriage. We have a real one, or we have nothing. Tears were streaming down his face now, silent and unchecked. He didn't try to wipe them away. Those are the best terms I've ever been offered. He managed, his voice rough. They're non-negotiable. I accept. The words were immediate, fervent, all of it, every condition. I nodded, the tightness in my chest easing just a fraction. Then we have a deal. He reached for my hand, then stopped, looking at me for permission. I placed my hand in his fingers closed around mine, warm, solid, anchoring me to the spot, to this impossible, terrifying new beginning. Where do we start? He asked, his thumb stroking my knuckles. I looked around the dive bar, at our joined hands on the scarred wood. We start by getting out of here and getting a decent meal, somewhere with no press. And you're buying. A real, genuine smile broke through the tears on his face. It was hesitant, hopeful, and more beautiful than any I'd seen from him in 6 years. Yes, ma'am. We stood up. He threw 100 on the bar for the 2 whiskeys and the club soda. The bartender with the beard whistled softly. Liam kept my hand in his as we walked out into the twilight. We didn't go to a famous restaurant. We found a small, family-run Italian place in a neighborhood neither of us knew. We ate pasta and drank cheap red wine. We talked, not about the past, not about the future, about nothing, about everything. The kind of talking you do on a first date, when you're discovering the shape of someone's mind, the sound of their laugh. I learned he hated cilantro, loved old westerns, and was secretly afraid of spiders. He learned I could quote every line from The Princess Bride, that I wanted to learn to sail, and that I thought his taste in art was pretentious. It was the most normal and the most extraordinary night of my life. Later, we walked along the water, the city lights reflecting on the dark bay. He stopped, turning to face me. The papers will call tomorrow. They'll want a statement, a photo, the victory lap. Let them, I said, leaning into his side. Well, give them a statement. One sentence. We're looking forward to the future. And one photo of us. Here. Now. I pulled out my phone, held it up. In the screen, I saw us, wind-blown, a little tired, with the glittering water behind us. I saw the ghost of the girl from the mixer and the shadow of the man from the boardroom. But mostly, I saw 2 people, tentatively, hopefully, starting a new story. I snapped the picture. It wasn't perfect. It was real. He looked at it over my shoulder, then bent and pressed his lips to my temple. A soft, lingering kiss. To the future, he murmured against my skin. It wasn't a happy ending. Those are for fairy tales. And we were far from that. It was a beginning. A fragile, hard one. Terrifyingly beautiful beginning. Built on the wreckage of all our lies. I hit post and sent our truth out into the world. Then I took my husband's hand, and we turned our backs on the glittering city and walked, together, into the unknown.